We're going to have a look at the latest report from the NATO Summit on how the alliance is strengthening its eastern flank. We're going to be looking at this from France 24. Let's go, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an article from France 24, and this is an update on the NATO Summit, and this is how the alliance is strengthening its eastern flank, along with seeking a compromise for Ukraine's entry into NATO. Leaders at the Venice Summit are on the quest to bolster the alliance's eastern front. So what has been happening at the NATO Summit, which has started today as a recording on Tuesday? So let's have a look into it, guys. The world leaders gathering at Lithuania's capital of Venice, I mispronounced the words, guys, I do apologise in advance, on Tuesday for the two-day NATO Summit, which will seek to formulate a united message on Ukraine's eventual membership with the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation amid efforts to reinforce the alliance's eastern front in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, obviously they need to bolster their defences, obviously, to ensure that to remain committed to the alliance whatsoever. So NATO began increasing its military presence on its eastern flank. Poland, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary and Bulgaria following Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, 4 months after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. NATO's General Secretary Jens Stoltenberg announced the alliance would boost the number of troops on high alert by more than sevenfold to more than 300,000. That's quite a big number, boosting the numbers there. I still don't think Russia will attack NATO. I think that's just crazy if they did. NATO has been conducting its biggest transformation of its defence plan since the Cold War to deter Moscow from encroaching on its neighbours. At the NATO Summit in Venice, member states are expected to announce increased investment on defence and elaborate long-term security plans. No country is immune to all threats. They all have vulnerabilities. For NATO, the eastern flank is important, said Valdis Vobry, Defence Policy Director of Lithuania's Ministry of Defence. Lithuania has reasons to be concerned. It shares a border with Kaliningrad, a Russian enclave located at the west on the Baltic Sea, and Belarus, which may analysts consider to be a de facto military extension of Russia. Yeah, that Kaliningrad border is obviously because it is part of the Russian enclave. If you know geography, guys. Been there for a long time. This is why we say geography matters. Control over the Baltic Sea matters, Ubris said. Yeah, Lithuania is vulnerable. They are very vulnerable in their position. As the war in Ukraine drags on, Poland also has security concerns after having experienced successive Russian invasions and occupations throughout its history. Warsaw leaders aren't taking any chances. The right-wing government of Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki announced in January that Poland would increase defence spending from 3% to 4% of GDP, putting it on track to become the NATO member that spends more on defence than any other relatives to its GDP. So this is currently the NATO members' defence spending in 2022 percentage of GDP. So currently the highest is Greece with 3.54%, America 3.46%, Lithuania 2.47%, Poland 2.42%, United Kingdom with 2.16%, Estonia 2.12%, and Latvia 2.07%. So obviously the vast majority, as you can see, obviously are the Baltic states, and rightfully so, being on the border with Russia. We need to close the gap. NATO has seen several of its members fall short of defence financial pledges over the last several years. NATO allies agreed in 2014 that member states should spend at least 2%. All these have spent 2%. On their GDP on defence within a decade, but many have still failed to reach its target. In 2022, France's defence spending was 1.89% of its GDP, Italy was 1.51%, and Spain was 0.9%. Only the 3 Baltic states, Poland, the UK, and the US and Greece have met or exceeded the 2% threshold. We need to close the gap, says Ubris. The Ukrainian war has reawakened fears of an expansionist Russia. In order to defend ourselves, we need as many forces on the ground as possible, with speed being key. With Russian capabilities across the border, our forces must be ready to react to any incursion on NATO territory, Ubris added. Zamoriskas Panavichus, a member of the Lithuanian Parliament, sees the NATO Summit as the right occasion to rally members on their defensive budgets. I hope Vilnius Summit will be the moment when all member states commit to NATO's defence spending, he said. Lithuania wants to press allies to spend more money on bolstering their military industries. industries. I'm losing my words today. This means persuading members of NATO to spend like the Baltic states, which have pledged to raise their defence spending to 3% of their GDP. 3% is a lot. 3% is a lot to defend on spending, if I'm honest, guys. Integrating Ukraine into NATO is an important piece of the puzzle for the Baltic states. Clearing Ukraine's path to NATO membership by the time of the Washington NATO Summit in 2024 will show Ukrainians and Russians will have a clear endgame strategy, and all other attempts to destroy Ukraine will fail, says Padavom. This war needs to end before Ukraine can join NATO. That one thing is certain. Keeping the big picture in mind, the threat to NATO's eastern flank can vary, and some military experts say the alliance needs to keep the big picture in mind. Whether it's an infantry attack on Poland or the intervention on Moldova, these are completely different scenarios, says Johan Mitchell, a research analyst at the London-based International Institute for Strategic Studies. To prepare for some of the possible scenarios, Allied air forces began the largest deployment exercises in NATO's history last June. Hosted and led by Germany, the 2-week-long Air Defender exercise has been planned for months, with training missions that took place over the North Sea, the Baltic Sea and southern Germany. The drills were aimed at bolstering the Allied preparedness against aircraft, drones and missile attacks on cities and infrastructure. But in modern warfare, an adversary doesn't need to cross NATO borders to be a threat. Michel cited the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which delivered Russia's oil and gas to Europe, as one of the examples of Russia's influence that could be wielded aggressively. These are the kind of scenarios that we would like to plan for the future, he added. As for Stoltenberg's 2022 objective to have a rapid reaction force for more than 300,000 troops ready to move to the eastern flank within 30 days, officials and experts admit NATO forces are nowhere near meeting that objective. To reach this goal, European armed forces need to improve their readiness capacity. This means improving artillery in some areas and air defence in other areas, says Mitchell. I do agree that they do need to have some kind of defence, but troop-wise, I mean, obviously there was talk about perhaps having a united, like the EU having its own army of some sort, but I don't think that was going to be the case. But I do think increasing defences all along the Baltic states seems like a more logical solution. If they could do it without troops, that would be much better, preferable. Anti-air and artillery, all that kind of stuff, just to protect themselves if Russia ever dares do it. I honestly don't think they will, but you just don't know. History has said that they aren't afraid to do it, but we do live in a very different time back since then. Decades of underspending on military capacities among NATO countries also mean that many of the out-of-date military equipment, including parts, need to be replaced. But this all costs money, by the way, as well. This all costs money. Readiness implies that what you can move at one time right away in terms of equipment and troops, says Mitchell. NATO's forward presence. NATO countries have been adapting to new security realities by increasing number of troops to the eastern part of the alliance. NATO's forward presence is made up of 8 multinational battle groups provided by allies on a voluntary and rotational basis. The battle groups operate in tandem with national armies, with Canada currently leading a battle group in Latvia and Britain leading one in Estonia. French Foreign Legionnaires have also been assigned to the UK-led battle group in Estonia as part of a France mission, what France calls Mission Lynx. Since the invasion of Ukraine, NATO countries have been stationing their battle groups in host countries for longer periods of time with the increased number of troops. Germany's Defence Minister Boris Pistorius recently promised to upgrade Germany's military presence in Lithuania to the size of a brigade. That's roughly around about 4,500 troops. Berlin already leads NATO's multinational battle group in Lithuania with a reinforced battalion of approximately 1,000 troops. We agreed that the brigade will grow step by step as the infrastructure is established, Pistorius added. And that such a development could not be completed within a few months. No. It could take years before the infrastructure for the brigades is in place, says Mitchell, yet by constructing the necessary infrastructure, including schools and housing areas for family, Germany is turning around a logistical problem for maintaining troops in one place over long periods of time, he added. Yeah, you need to have all the infrastructure around if you're going to have troops stationed there. A plethora of voices. While NATO has remained mostly united in the wake of the invasion of Ukraine, member states can have different, even completing interests. A recent example is Turkey's resistance to Sweden's membership in what Akanas saw Sweden's lack of action on the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK militia, before a last-minute reversal on the eve of the summit. The NATO summit in Vilnius will focus largely on regional plans and resources, along with efforts to find a consensus on Ukraine's future membership with the alliance. We, the member countries, each have our political lines and interests, Ubris says. Our ambitions are not always the same, that's why we talk with our partners from other countries. Ubris says that Russia's system is under stress due to the high-century nature of power in Vladimir Putin's Russia. Particularly now, Putin is spending extraordinarily on defence while human lives and social programs are being put on the back burner, he says. Democracies are actually better equipped to take care of their own because of transparency, says Mitchell. We are not bad at restoring our armed forces when we want to because of our flexibility and adaptability. So, this is what pretty much mainly of the topic of discussion, obviously, from this is obviously the increase in defence spending. Not so much on this one really about the not so much about on pretty much on what's the on what they're doing for Ukraine, but more on what NATO are doing to ensure to protect themselves from Russia. And obviously it's easy for us to say, well, they should be spending it on the people, but at the same time, you know, we don't know for certain. Like, yes, we hear a lot about Russia's strength, that Russia are not in the right place, that Russian government's in chaos and all this kind of thing, but we generally don't know for certain what's going on in Moscow. We really don't. And NATO has to be very careful. They have to protect themselves. Finland have been for a long time have one of the strongest defences, one of the most entrenched defences on their borders against Russia for a very long time. And if Russia was to ever attack Finland, they would get seriously hurt, no matter how strong the Russian army would be. And I think for NATO's perspective, they need to not, especially from the European Union's point of view, they need to not rely on America, and they need to be able to rely upon themselves to be able to look after each other. I kind of wish, it wasn't at the expense of taxpayers' money, but at the same time, like, given Russia's volatility right now, I think it is justified what they are doing, and considering the state that Russia is in right now, and we have a war going on in Ukraine that we don't know if or when it's going to end as well. But what do you guys think of this summit so far? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm interested to hear what you guys think, that is for sure. The defence spending obviously looks like that not everybody is up to scratch on that. But we're still spending over 2% currently, and obviously others are spending a bit more. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, and we'll see how the summit continues to go on. So, like, share and subscribe, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you all very soon.